And we are back. This is the Second Opinion. We're a sports medicine podcast. I'm Dr. Dhokal,
I'm Dr. Glass.
and we are back in business. Dustin, how are you today? Happy Tuesday to you.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Tuesday to you. It's a
Yes.
beautiful day down here. What's it like there?
Yeah, it's hot if I put it plainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely warming up. It's mid-July. It's peach season, and things are clacking early. The farm equipment and the birds are chirping. I read the other day that the birds start chirping an hour to an hour and a half before sunrise. And ever since I read that, I hear them like at 4:45, 5:15, little chirp, 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 chirp. And I also read that bird song opens up the flowers that
Mm.
plants hear bird song and it helps open them up, which prepares them for like pollination. And
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, that symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's warm, dude. It's in the 90s. I was driving home yesterday. It was hot. Like
Yeah.
it's almost that weather where I need to wear a cap on the way home or throw a towel on my head or something. That glass roof is hot.
It is. Yeah, well, you're in the valley there, so it all kind of pools in there. I remember my first football summer camp up there. It got up to 112, 120. It
Yeah.
was ridiculous, and I was not prepared for that coming from down here, Southern California, going up to Northern California and having that heat for the first 2 weeks of Hell Week. And we went from 120 players first week down to like around 60.
No
Guys
way.
guys just dropping off, not having it. So yeah, it was hot. It was probably one of the hotter summers they had had in a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
That's attrition right there for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's
But
crazy. Actually, that's
yeah,
something we should touch on because right now there's a lot of people that are starting college camps. And I know that you did back in Chico. So you came from LA straight to Chico, so the north of California.
yeah.
And obviously it gets super hot there. With 60 people dropping, did you ever have the thought in your head like, man, I can't cut this. I want to quit? Because I feel like knowing you and I would just suffer through it and we'd be one of the 60 that made it. But what was your mentality going through that being younger?
Yeah, it was never in my DNA to quit. So that did not
Me
come
that.
across. I just knew it was hot, and I just knew the more people that peeled off and quit, it was closer to me starting. So it
Yeah.
was I was like, burn baby burn, let's go.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, But, yeah, it was uncomfortable, miserable, but, growing up watching Rambo and watching, Chuck Norris and Bloodsport and, Van Damme, all these guys, those were and, I was coached by a bunch of, being down here in Pendleton by a bunch of Marines, so they were coming off their, Vietnam era,
Mhm.
we were ingrained to, just deal with elements. And so by the time I got to Chico, it really wasn't an issue, but I know
Mm,
that was for a lot of people, obviously almost half the team. So
yeah.
yeah.
The mental aspect's huge. I have 3 or 4 of my high school kids that are now in college. They started college early, went to school in January, and so they're starting summer camp, and, that's a brutal period, and I think it is kinda made to not necessarily break you, but to really push you, like, this is some would say the hardest part of football is this 2-week camp going into preseason, going into the season, just really being tested and being put into shape, and so to all the athletes out there that are about to start their season, because the school year is about to start, we're in midsummer, we wish you the best of luck, and if you have any questions as far as injuries or health as you get underway, we'd be a great resource for you guys if anybody had any questions about training, longevity, staying healthy through the season. Those are all things that really interest Dustin and I. So if there's any college athletes out there or even high school athletes that would like to come on or share their experience or have any questions, like this is what we're here for. And that's actually, we have topics to talk about every week, but I think both you and I would agree if we were talking about something that one of our audience members or listeners had a concern about and we could break that down, that is also important to us.
Yeah, for sure. And getting back to the 2 weeks, the hell weeks, especially if, we're talking about football, but it goes for a lot of, other sports that you have a camp when you come into
Yes.
preseason or whatnot. A lot of it, and especially with the football thing, but a lot of it, just so you players know, and I'm sure you know by now, but it's not so much to see if you're in shape or if you can handle it or whatnot. Part of it mentally for the coaches is to see who put in the time on the off season, who put in the time to prepare. Because
Yeah.
most teams will, even when I was going through in, as a youth and in high school, they would always give a summer workout. And that summer workout was like the playbook and the blueprint to what you're going to be facing and probably be multiplied a little. So they wanted to see, okay, who actually opened that, summer program, who actually put in the work during the time. So it's kind of it's not only is it to see if you did the work, you should be able to do anything they give you.
Yeah.
And then they'll have a really quick idea who actually put in the time or just said they put in the time. So just know
Facts.
that that's kind of your first test that first week. The first day is to see who showed up and who put in the time and work ahead of time. And that's the type of players, the coaches are looking for and they want. We have summer camps right now for flag football, and you know, we did a drill yesterday, and this was it was a youth camp, so even younger, but even for our high schoolers, it's a drill where you can weed out. And I was talking to one of the coaches. We can weed out real quick the personalities on the team just based on these one drill.
Right.
This one particular drill. It's basically, you know, it's a great way to. We were able to like characterize 4 or 5 different types of players just by observing and watching. And I love standing in the back and watching the kids from behind as well to see who's not paying attention, who's what. And a lot of these kids have no idea that these coaches are watching these
Watch.
intangibles
Yeah.
and these other things. They just think it's based on the skill level and
Yeah.
other things. But there's a whole lot of other coaches watching and observing. So just take note. We're always
Yeah.
watching.
It's a
Assume
great
everybody's watching you at all times.
it's actually a great, great, great point about being observed. It's not only when you're up to run your drill as a coach, it's not just a position coach who's watching you. There's other coaches on the field who might be observing you from across the field. You might have an O-line coach, using football as an example, who's looking across the field at the wide receivers and seeing some lackadaisical behavior or seeing some horseplay, seeing some lack of focus. And, the thing that always weirded me out or I was aware of, I should say, when I was on the NFL sideline is sometimes I'd be there just talking to a player or be all by myself. And I'd be like, well, no one's looking at me. There's a stadium full of people here. There's people across the sidelines. There's people here. You're not supposed to pull out your phone on the sidelines and just be,
Mhm.
minding your business and be in a certain area. And the thought did occur to me a couple times, well, I could just drift over there. I could just go and say what's up to my buddy over here and just kind of, and then it was like, well, see all those luxury boxes around there that you can't see in through the
Yeah.
glass? Someone's up there. Someone's looking at their sideline and being like, who's that dude in the suit who's not in the Chargers gear, who's over here pacing back and forth? Like,
Mhm.
you got to be aware people are watching at all times. And
Yep.
if you're an athlete, it's not just about your performance, because as a coach, I'm looking for, are you a good teammate? Are you helping your teammates? Are you, observing them? Are you, breaking focus by horsing around? Are you having a good time and dancing in between and
Yeah.
raising the energy? Maybe that's not
Mhm.
horseplay. You're just kind of trying to fire up, so
Yeah.
those are all things that make you a good teammate. And I could see a young person kind of forgetting that in the moment, and maybe that makes an impression upon a coach. We're all human. So the impressions that people make sometimes last, so
Yeah.
to anyone listening who's younger, I think Dustin made a great point about, you're there for a job. It is a sport, but now at the collegiate level, I think it is more of a job because people are getting paid. And I think you should treat it as such. You should treat it like you're a professional. And I think I should mention that maybe to a couple of my younger athletes of like, you have the dream of wanting to go to the next level, even beyond this. And so let's start acting as if now and not wait till we're pros to act like pros. Let's act like pros.
100%.
Let's act
Yeah.
like pros now.
Yeah, and separate yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
majority, and I always say, don't be the norm, don't be the average. Because guess what? You'll get lost in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, most people are just doing what they're doing, but if you're an outlier and an outlier in the way that is elevating yourself and your game and your whole persona,
Yeah.
then why not? It's only going to help you. But to your point with the way who's watching and stuff, a lot of times as coaches too, we might be seeing something, and a lot of times I'll pull a coach that's not part of the position and say, "Hey, you mind over this next week, just keep an eye on this one kid and see what
Mm,
you're seeing." So a
yeah.
lot of times it's not like you were saying, it's not just your position coach, and it might not just be one-offs. We might actually be wanting to watch and purposefully be seeing how you're working amongst other things too. So always being watched.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the girls' flag football because I know that wasn't on our topic for today, but I do want to hear about how that's going. And it does interest me just I just think it's going to be booming.
Yeah.
I think women's flag football and flag football in general for youth is only going to continue to grow for several reasons. But why don't you tell me how that's going for you and like what you've observed or maybe what you've learned and like what your experience is like, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, to your point, it's already kind of taken off. We've already seen a couple of girls locally, sign big NIL deals, but also sign big full scholarships to big power schools. So it's becoming a mainstream in high school now,
Yeah.
and it's been fun because I got to see the progression. I've been there since day one of, especially with the Matt Leinart League. I helped me and another guy brought on the first all girls team in the league.
I remember.
So talk about a progression. It was at a point where there was no girls at all to where then by within the 3 years of us doing it, we personally had two teams, and then by the third or fourth year, they actually developed a whole league just for girls. We were getting such a great outpour of kids and siblings wanting to watch our games while
Yeah.
their brothers were playing. The sisters were coming and watching, parents were coming and watching because it was unheard of back then. There
Mhm.
was no all girls team. And so it's been really fun to see the progression. And I remember now it's a CIF sport. And which is huge. And I remember when Matt contacted us and said, hey, just wanted to let you know we're thinking about making this a CIF sport, and just wanted to kind of tell you guys because you guys were kind of instrumental in that. And it was pretty cool. And then it actually got done, and our two older daughters were part of the first season of that high school season. And that even then it was more like powder puff. There was hard to find teams to play. And mainly all the players were all soccer players or lacrosse players, softball player, so it was really just the game was very infant in
Mhm.
its infancy. The girls really didn't know how to play, and we were just all learning together. And now fast forward to what I just got brought on to this team at the high school level, and they're already full swing into it. And I'm finding out, in the last couple of years, they actually have travel teams, club teams that these girls are playing all year long, and their skill level is,
Huh?
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a whole nother level. I'm going to be my buddy who's the head varsity coach. They needed help at the JV level, so I'm assisting at the JV level, which is awesome. And basically, the way it works is all the teams fresh off JV and varsity all practice together on the same field, kind of peel off into their individual stuff, but then and then we play games and basically at the same locations all the time. So it's just this big kind of like fraternity of coaches, and and we're all together, and a big team, but play at
Yeah.
three different levels. So
No, that's awesome, really. Actually, I've heard from not a ton of people, but a half a dozen or a dozen younger athletes, women, who really are like, I think football is my favorite sport, and that was, I don't want to say, yeah, a little bit shocking to hear, to be honest,
yeah,
because I could see whatever type of young athlete, woman, girl who wants to try it out because it's cool, or she's a football fan, she watches the game or she plays fantasy football. But for the most part, younger women haven't had, or younger girls haven't had the opportunity to really participate in organized flag football. Like maybe you might play on the playground, or maybe with your brothers, but to have an organized league and allow girls to learn the game a little bit better,
yeah,
because you're participating versus being a witness to it, I think is huge. And yeah, it was just interesting to have a few girls say, yeah, I actually love it. I
yeah,
used to play soccer, but like football is my jam now.
yeah,
One girl's like an amazing swimmer and she's going to continue to swim because she'll probably, be a collegiate swimmer and have a full scholarship or whatever. But she's like, low key, I love football.
yeah,
My parents don't love it because I'm getting banged up because there's contact, and she's like, in the pool, I'm just kind of,
yeah,
mostly injury free. No one's thugging on me in the pool. But, it just, to me, it was like, if you're an athlete, you're an athlete. If you're really an athlete, you can play more than one sport. If you're really good at one sport, that's cool too. I was almost going to say, I don't consider you an athlete per se, but that's not quite the right
right,
terminology. But it's like, you can be an athlete by playing one sport. You can be athletic because you play multiple sports.
right.
And I see a lot of transition, a lot of crossover for women, like the soccer player girls that I know that changed to football.
Oh yeah,
Like talk about running back quick, like moves and like hand-eye coordination and just like the footwork, dude, the footwork like blew me away. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, like if I ever
Cutting.
have a son, I'm gonna put him in soccer
Yeah.
as well as football. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, all those things help.
Yeah.
So
And that crossover really is awesome. Yeah.
it's so important. You see it in quarterbacks who used to play baseball, who now have different throwing motions and
Yeah.
angles, and the parents out there who really try to specialize, and you and I probably see it a lot where
Hmm.
people have dreams. I wanted my son to be a baseball player, a basketball player, and so they really specialize. As a parent, did you have that challenge, Dustin, where you really wanted your daughters to play softball, or they naturally kind of had an affinity towards a certain sport? Like, how did you navigate that, or do you just kind of let them do what they pleased?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I grew up all boy thinking, okay, I didn't even think having a girl was possible. That was kind of my mindset. Like, yeah, no, it's not even a
Yeah.
possibility. And then here I am having three. When you grow up doing all the sports, all the hunting, fishing, camping, rolling in the dirt, playing in the poison ivy. Yeah. So
I'm gonna time out you real quick. They do say that the most athletic men have daughters
yeah,
typically, because
okay,
something about the gene, about like being super athletic and like whatever the dominant or recessive gene, but they say that the most athletic men typically happen to have daughters, which,
mm,
if you take your friend Kobe as an
that's the
example,
first thing I thought. Yeah, me and him had many conversations over being a girl dad and trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Each
yeah,
time we would come up and, hey, I'm having another girl, and like, what are we doing? Like, yeah. So,
it's a beautiful thing, dude. It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing. You're really
yeah,
blessed.
yeah.
So I
So,
didn't mean to interrupt. It occurred to
no,
me, to give you props. You just must
yeah.
be a really athletic man. That's why you're having daughters, my boy.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love, my girls are awesome. I always say I have the best of both worlds because they can dress up all girly and get all dolled up, and then when they're on the field, they're like little, warriors out there. So
Yeah.
I lucked out that way. I have all three that are like that. So yeah, so I get my princess time, and then I get my ball player time. But when it came to figuring it out, so having a girl, I'm like, okay, kind of, let's see how this rolls. At the time, I didn't even really know softball. Softball was kind of out there, but not really. You know, Luckily, I would by our house we had a park that the girls would be playing youth softball, so we would
Hmm.
walk the girls around in the stroller as one of our walks, and we'd watch it, and then eventually, basically, it comes down to who your kids, who the parents are hanging out with, and then what are their kids doing, and so
Yeah.
usually, that's how it kind of morphs. So you can start as parents hang out more with the parents, and
Hmm.
so you're like, oh, well, your kid's doing that. Well, let's put them in there together and let them have a play date, and we'll hang out, right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
kind of how, when you're a new parent, that's kind of how it's starting. Is like, unless you come from like a hard baseball family and your dad played professional baseball and you're a boy and that's what you're going to do. Doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. But for us, it was kind of like, let's just see how this rolls. We started off like that, and then it just morphed into a lot of stuff. I wanted my girls to do, I really in the beginning wanted to do swim lessons because I know
Hmm.
swimming's something you can do forever. They usually swimmers have some of the best physiques. They stay
Yeah.
physically fit. It's impossible to, if you want to swim horizontal, you have to maintain your core. If you lose your core, you sink either way. So swimming by nature, you're already developing a great core foundation for your spine, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
so I thought, okay, well, let's start them off early, and it's something they can do their whole life, not knowing all high school stuff, the other levels. Now I know how hard and intense it is, but when you're a new parent trying to figure it out, but I thought that and jujitsu, those were the two things I really
Mm,
wanted my girls. Jujitsu, I wanted them to get used to and being comfortable if somebody grabbed them or laid on top of them, that they wouldn't panic to that
right.
next level, right?
No,
So jujitsu is something I wanted them to be a part of, which we did do jujitsu for a month or so with some friends and stuff, and they got a little of it, but it never continued because it got in the way of softball and other stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, those were the two things that if I always recommend to my patients, new parents, when they ask what should we do? Those are two for lifelong type things. And the reasons for those two reasons, for health, longevity, and for having that presence of having somebody grab you, somebody roll. Because what happens with a lot of kids, they panic when somebody comes up
Yeah.
behind, grabs them, or grabs their arm. They don't know what to do. But
Yeah.
if you can start young with them, and so it's not such a scary thing, so they can respond properly, that was important to me. You know,
No, great
you
point,
teach
dude.
them, hey, kick them in the groin,
Yeah.
gouge their eyes out, but you have to get to that point to where you're not panicking first, right?
Mm.
If you're
Yeah, yeah.
panicking, you can't think to kick or hit or punch, you're just like in a shock mode. And so, yeah.
Well, here's some advice just because you brought it up and it occurred to me and somebody had mentioned it, so I'll bring it up now. It was about this person was somebody who had been convicted of like assaulting multiple women, and they interviewed him. And in short, he said two things. One is if he was going to attack like a couple or somebody with a male around, if the male person with him appeared to be paying attention, like just walking, observant, just not totally aloof, being on the phone, he's not messing with it. If you're a woman or you're a dude and you're just on it, paying attention to your surroundings, he wasn't with it. If you were a dude with a woman and you were like on your phone, looking around, just not really, in your own little bubble, he's like, dude, that person is fair game because 9 out of 10, they're crumbling. They're not fighting back. They're like not even aware. They're like, and
Yeah.
so that was something that I always kind of placed in my mind of whether I'm by myself or with you as a male or anybody else, like, yo, I'm paying attention. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm observant, like I'm on the field. I'm trying to be aware of my surroundings. But
Yeah.
as far as women went, it was he said that he had attacked or tried to assault or rob or whatever it was, and his advice was just fight back. In short, just fight back. He's like, the people that fought back for more than like a few seconds, he's like, I was gone. Like, I'm not trying. I'm looking for the person who just crumbles and is like giving up and is passive. That's my victim. He's like the person
Mhm.
who's fighting and screaming and yelling and putting up with something like I'm trying to do. And then after like five, like I'm out.
Yeah.
And that really, really resonated with me. I was like, oh, shoot, they're really looking, if you
Actually
dug
have
it,
fought.
yeah, and not every criminal, I guess, is different. Everybody who's going to assault someone's different, but it just struck me as very important in this example. If you're a woman, just not to quit and to fight, or if you're a dude, like getting in a situation, there's value to not giving up and just not folding in a situation, which gets back to what you said about being calm and being able to think and respond versus react. If you're reacting, you might react in any type of way, like crumbling or not being able to speak or whatever it is, versus if you're calm in that situation. So even though your daughter's only got a month or a few weeks of it, I think that had to provide some value there as well.
Yeah, for sure. And at home, you're always wrestling around, and talking scenarios all the time anyway. So I would continually work on what we learned in the classes and, keep pressuring them and trying to simulate things throughout the years. So yeah, so it didn't just stop at the classes. So that was important to me. I also always I come from a generation where, you mess around and you find out.
Right.
Well, so I you our girls would have little, scuffles here and there, and if somebody laid hands on somebody, we would always teach don't start it, but always finish it, right? So
Yeah.
I would teach my girls from day one within themselves, if your sister, does something, gets out of line, you have free reins. I give you permission. Now you can't, leave a mark to where it's going to leave a lasting mark, but you can let her know you don't appreciate that. And especially, with the hitting or the kicking or whatever. So they self-regulated themselves quite a bit. And a lot of times, they would look at me and like, I'm like, hit her back, but they were too nice. They hardly ever did. And then sometimes they would, and then it would shock each other. And then they'd have a laugh about it. Cause whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, because then you get all these kids, oh, don't, or these parents telling their kids, don't, hit somebody or whatever. And I'm not saying go out and be a bully and be violent. I'm saying protect yourself. Don't be a victim,
Right.
So that's the thing. And it starts at home. You got to teach the difference between the right and wrong. And yeah, just don't
Yeah.
be a victim.
Well, they have a good example in you, I'd say, just having known you as a close friend for decades now, they have a good example in you as a father to kind of draw those boundaries and lines. And you're right, don't be a victim, but also don't be a bully and stick up for other people that maybe can't stick up for themselves. And the thing that I've observed is bullies don't like people who stick up for themselves.
Right.
and we'll quickly move on. So that's yeah, that's those are probably difficult times as a father. You're probably like, let me go find out who's
Yeah.
making my girl upset. I'm gonna go take care of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of times you want to take care of things, but
Yeah. That's good to let them sort it out themselves as well and have those experiences and kind of self regulate or, you know, figure those things out amongst their peers for sure.
yeah.
Quick question for you, Dustin. Do you see me in the pod or am I just a frozen?
I don't see anything. It's just black right now.
Gotcha.
So maybe log off, log on, or
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this one up and then we'll log on for part two of this. But yeah, I'll see what's going on with this connection here. Any last thoughts on what we talked about today before we wrap?
no. Yeah, I don't think we need to do a part 2. I think this is a good short, and, hopefully it resonated with a few people, and, I know we didn't talk any cases or anything, but we will next pod,
Yeah.
and, yeah, so thank you everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you got something out of it, or at least makes you think of something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said about just sharing your experiences with your daughters, I think is valuable. And the flag football, I want to keep hearing updates as the season goes on.
Yeah,
I'll bring it up as well, but feel free to share stories or experiences as the season goes on because I know you're going to have a bunch and I don't want you
yeah,
to feel like we're being redundant. I genuinely am interested in like hearing how the season's going and how the girls are doing, how the record is, if anyone's progressing, things like even just people getting college opportunities. I think
yeah,
that's important for the public and our listening audience to hear that because there could be parents out there that didn't know that that was possible, you know? So
correct.
it is changing. And yeah, it's an amazing time, dude. I kind of wish we were back in high school days again. I wonder if we could land like a six-figure deal somewhere, you know, probably.
Yeah,
Though
yeah,
maybe not. Maybe the athlete of the late 90s, early 2000s is nothing compared to the. Although I did tell my wide receiver who was in high school, I said, boy, if I was back in my DB days, I would lock you up. And he's like, there's no way, doc. There's no way. I said, what do you guys say? You strap him? Bro, I strap you down today. He was laughing. He said, you got any tape? I said, bro, I don't got any tape. I just got stories.
Hey, at least he said tape. At least he was speaking
Right.
your language. He knew you would understand
He
that.
might have said film. I might have just substituted that in. Who
Yeah.
knows? That's funny. All right, Dustin. Well, thanks for the time this morning, man. I know you have a busy day ahead as well, but I appreciate you carving out time as always. And I'm sure our audience does as well. To those listening, you guys are the real MVPs. We do this for you so we can disseminate some information, talk about things that are interesting to us. If you found this interesting, hit that like button, share this with somebody that you care about. And we appreciate you. Leave a comment if you have a question, and we'll sign off for today. Any last thoughts, Dustin?
No, just go out there and have a great day.
Let's have a great day. And everybody listening, we appreciate you. We'll be back with you next week. This is The Second Opinion. I'm Dr. Dhokal signing off.
I'm Dr. Glass.